There is the case where there are being investigation states as a factor for awakening present within. It discerns that investigation of states as a factor for awakening is present within me, or there being no investigation of states as a factor for awakening present within. It discerns that investigations of states as a factor for awakening is not present within me. It discerns how there is a rising of unreason investigation of states as a factor for awakening, and he discerns how there is the culmination of development of investigation of states as a factor for awakening once it has arisen. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, so this is the section that we have got to discuss today. So before going on to that section, since we have been silent for about 3-4 weeks, I'm sure everything may have gone down the drain, and it would be a good idea to refresh what we have been discussing. So in the last meeting, we touched upon the factors for enlightenment, and that is something which is given in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And in 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Blessed One is not explaining the factors for awakening, but he's explaining how they should be treated as a phenomenon. Right? So before coming on to that, for us it will be important to understand what the 4 factors of or rather 7 factors of enlightenment are. So that is what we are doing at the moment. So the first one, which is mindfulness as a factor for enlightenment, we discussed in the last meeting. And to get there, we have come a long way with our practice, with our interview questions, and by listening to talks. So these are called the supportive factors. So that one of the supportive factors is what we are doing, which is the listening supportive factor. So from the supportive factors, or from our practice, what we have basically done is we have created a foundation. We have improved our understanding of not just the practice, but also the detailed understanding how it works. The Blessed One has explained that in 2 different layers in the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Initially, he's explaining the gross layer, which is being mindful on the body, being mindful of the feelings, and then being mindful of the mind. That's a gross layer so far as I'm concerned. And the very same thing is presented in a different way in the phenomena. In phenomena, we have discussed hindrances, chapter on hindrances, and the clinging aggregates, and then the sense faculties, internal and external sense faculties, and how they work. So those 3 chapters are also talking about nothing else but body, feeling, and the mind. But it's a different layer. It's not just for the sake of observing, but you see it in a different layer. So when your practice is developing to that extent, at least if you are able to see the basics of the phenomena, then it gives an indication that your factors for enlightenment are developing. So when you practice, when you keep on practicing, and when you improve on the practice, and if I may use the word, when you get some mastery over the practice, then the enlightenment, factors for enlightenment are becoming stronger and stronger. So once it becomes stronger, then those factors for enlightenment themselves become part of the phenomena. So that's what we are talking now. So in other words, these factors for enlightenment is the vehicle that goes to the state called wisdom, or the ultimate happiness, right? It's like building a rocket, right? So rocket is built, say, for example, to go to the Mars. And there will have a moment where you count from 10 to 0, and then it blasts off. And then it goes to the Mars. But until that point, there are so many things that are happening. There are training of the people and recruitment of people and huge amount of planning and huge amount of technical operations and technology operations and provisions of the necessities, who is in the flight, as well as the flight itself, and so many things are happening. But we don't see any of those things. We see only the blast off, and it is going, and after that some photographs are being sent. So what we have been doing by observing body, mind, and the feeling and the early parts of the phenomena is building the rocket. Now, once the rocket is built, now it is going towards the Mars or going towards the moon or wherever it is going to. So these factors for enlightenment is that rocket. The rocket that goes to the wisdom, the rocket that goes to the ultimate happiness, which we call Nibbana or Nirvana, right? So with that refresher on what we have discussed in the previous sessions, if I get on to the factors of enlightenment, or factors for enlightenment rather, the first one we discussed was the mindfulness factor as a factor for enlightenment. So in that, there was a very clear explanation to it. And we discussed how this pair attention that we start develops into this state. And it is one of the basic spiritual faculty that has been stated so many times in the 37 factors of enlightenment. So it starts as a seed of mindfulness, and then it develops into the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and then it develops into a faculty, a spiritual faculty as a mindfulness, and then it becomes a power of mindfulness, and then that power of mindfulness has now become the factor for mindfulness. And we have discussed how that happened. So I'm not going to discuss that once again, since we won't be having time to discuss what we are supposed to discuss. So when we come to the mindfulness as a factor for enlightenment, the Blessed One is giving a very specific quality in mindfulness. And what he says is asammutta sati, if I remember the word right. Asammutta sati means unwavering mindfulness. I'll repeat the word, unwavering mindfulness. When I say unwavering mindfulness, you may get the impression that you will be having your mindfulness to the breath continuously, or you may be having your mindfulness to the walking continuously. That is not what I mean. I don't mean that your attention will be with the object all the time. What the Blessed One says is, by unwavering mindfulness, is your awareness will prevail irrespective of what happens to your object. Your object may go for 6. It may not be there. But your awareness is intact. You know that it is not there. Instead, something else is there, and you are not bothered by it. You have a heightened mindfulness, heightened awareness. So that's the difference of Buddha's teaching compared to the pre-Buddha's period. So if I go another step forward to give a small example, it is like a child going into the beach and just keeps watching how the sun sets. Right? Sun is setting, but she's simply observing. Or if I give another example, a child or someone who is by the side of the road is just looking at the road. And when he's looking at the road, so many things are happening on the busy highway. Vehicles are going, and it's especially in Sri Lanka, if you observe a road, right, it will be very difficult to say what is not there on the road, right? There will have more dogs and cats on the road in some of the roads than people and vehicles sometimes, right? So many things will be there, but you will be simply observing. So many push bicycles will be there, so many motorbikes will be there, and so many three-wheelers will be there, so many cars will be there, so many buses will be there. Everyone will be honking, and some people will be selling things, and kids will be walking, and some may be crossing roads, and you don't try to do anything. What you simply say is just keep observing, just keep maintaining your awareness. So the ability that you have not to get involved with what is going on and just being separated from them is mindfulness, or the heightened mindfulness, or the unwavering mindfulness that we have discussed as a factor for enlightenment. Mindfulness as a factor for enlightenment. Right? So from that, now we will have to come to our topic. Our topic is to understand what investigation of states is as a factor for enlightenment, right? And that has been explained in one of the discourses. The discourse is discourse on breathing, and it says, remaining mindful this way, he examines, analyzes, and comes to a comprehension of that quality with discernment. When he remains mindful in this way, examining, analyzing, and coming to a comprehension of that quality with discernment, then investigation of states as a factor for awakening becomes aroused. It develops it, and for him, it goes to the culmination of its development. So that is the explanation that is given in the discourse. So I will read it once again. Remaining mindful this way. That is the starting point for the investigation of states. And what do you mean by remaining mindful this way? Remaining mindful this way means the unwavering mindfulness that we discuss as a factor for enlightenment. When you are mindful this way, what happens is, if you take the child who is by the side of the road, or the person by the side of the road, what happens is he just examines things, he just analyzes things, he just comes to a comprehension of that quality with discernment. He sees things in more detail. Initially, he will be just watching. But when you keep on watching, he will see people. He will see vehicles. He will see animals. And then if he still keeps on observing, he will see things keeps moving constantly. And then sometimes it becomes less busy when the peak hour is over. And then after a while, once again, it peaks up. So he will see all these details, right? Although the English translation is using more active terms, these are not, in fact, things that are happening actively. And it says in Pali, pavichinati, pavicheti, parivimuktam, apajyati. So the closest that they can come is examines, analyzes, and comes to a comprehension of that quality with discernment. Right. So if we take these words to understand the meaning of pavichinati, pavicheti, parivimamsam, apajyati, or examines, analyzes, and comes to a comprehension of that quality, we'll take a few examples. Say, for example, you want to recruit someone to your office or to the factory or wherever the employer wants to recruit someone. So you will have to select somebody and then fill this vacancy. What he does is, he will have to first get all the applications and then go through all the applications, right? So there is once, just because you receive the application, you will not be able to select someone. You'll have to go through all the applications, and that going through is the examination. I mean, it's not exactly the same thing. I'm just trying to separate the meaning of these terms for us to proceed with the quality of investigation. And once you have gone through, in the process, you will have some criteria how this will be identified and this will be sorted out, right? So based on those criteria, some of the applications will directly go to the trash bin or to the shredder, will not be considered after that, and analyze. And some of the applications will be shortlisted, and you will have the interview process, right? So what happens there is you examines, analyzes, and comes to a comprehension or conclusion of whom should be recruited. It's the same thing in Sri Lanka. And during some years back, most of the marriages were by way of a proposal. So what happens is, when there is a proposal, someone from either the groom side or the bride side will go to that village and then see how the family is and how that environment is, and how they don't go to the house. They just go around and see how the area is and talk to some neighbors and get some information. And then at home, when they come back, they discuss, and this is how things are going on, and now the place is happy. And then only they go and visit the family. And then once they visit the family, then if either the boy or the girl likes them, then only the rest of the part starts. So it's like that. Even in our practice, when our mindfulness is firm, you will be able to go a bit deeper into the physical and mental process. And that going deeper into the physical and mental process is what is called investigation of states or investigation as a factor for enlightenment. And the word investigation implies that you are doing something actively. In fact, it happens naturally because of the unwavering mindfulness that you are having. Right. So therefore, a lot of people who really try to learn Buddhism by reading books and by listening to talk and with hardly any practice, they see this as something that has to be done and mess up the whole thing, right? So therefore, I'm repeating that investigation as a factor for enlightenment is not something something that you will have to do. It happens if you allow your mindfulness to stay unwavering, and if you allow the mindfulness to stay firm. And that is why the Blessed One starts saying, keep the mindfulness to the fore at the very beginning of 4 foundations of mindfulness. That's the advice of the Buddha. What he says is, take the body as your focal point, take the body as your concentration object, and keep the mindfulness to the fore. And let anything happen to your body, but you just maintain your awareness. And when you maintain your awareness, and if your awareness is firm, and you can go through the body, and you can go across the body, not only just body, even the mental process as well. So that cannot be explained to those who are only reading books, because they think reading the book and having their own imagination of what is in the book is the wisdom and not the practice. So therefore, something like factors for enlightenment can be, or I would say should be, discussed only with the practitioners. Otherwise, it will be a waste of time. Right. So having said this, to get to investigation as a factor for factor for enlightenment, Blessed One is also saying in another discourse that it is not happening on its own. It is not happening naturally, right? He is also hinting that there is something that you will have to do. There are some indications that there is some active part as well, but it is not definitely reading. It is not definitely making your awareness gross. That suggestion is to make your awareness even subtler. So we will see what he says. The discourse is a discourse called Ahara Sutta. The full term is Ahara Titikaya Sutta, or the English term is food discourse. And in that, the Blessed One says, because that discourse is saying there is nothing that thrives without food. And we know our body is definitely dependent upon food. And similarly, our mental process as well. And in the same way, even the spiritual faculties or the spiritual development is also based on food. So the food that the Blessed One has given for mindfulness was, I exactly don't remember. I think Sati Sambhajanghataniya Dhamma. Right, and that was the thing, and we explained that how this is Sati Sambhajanghataniya Dhamma, or the food for the mindfulness, in the previous session. But in this session, for investigation, this is the food that is necessary. The Blessed One said, what is the food for the arising of unarisen investigation of states as a factor for awakening, or for the growth and increase of investigation of states as a factor for awakening? And once it is arisen, is asking this question, what is the food for this, for the unreason investigation factor to arise, and food for the growth and increase of it, and how, by which food you know that it is completed as well. And then he says there are mental qualities that are skillful and unskillful, blameworthy and blameless, gross and refined, siding with darkness and with light. Foster appropriate attention to them. That is the food. I'm sure you did not get head or tail of it. It's pretty technical, but we will see how we can make it simple. So he has given here few mental states, right? The mental states are, in general, positive and negative mental states, right? So the key point here is foster appropriate attention to them. And that is a very poor English translation of the Pali term. The Pali term that is used there is Yoniso Manasikara Bahuli Karoti. Yoniso Manasikara Bahuli Karoti means you take your attention to the very beginning, to the origin of things, whatever is happening. And not just once, not twice, not thrice, not 10 times, not 100 times, immeasurable number of times. Bahuli Karoti means you do as much as possible. Continuation of bringing your attention to the very origin of things is called Yoniso Manasikara Bahuli Karoti. I'm not quite sure whether that meaning is given or whether you get that impression when I say foster appropriate attention. It is, for me, it's a bit weak, bit poor, but that was the best translation I could find. Now, since you know the actual meaning of it, the fact that you will have to drive your attention to the origin and keep driving attention to the origin thousands of times, hundreds and thousands of times, is called Bahuli Karoti. Do it over and again, more and more, more and more, more and more, endless. This is why we come here and practice. Every time when we come here, we do this 45 minutes walking and 45 minutes sitting. And at home, on a daily basis, we do, depending on the time available, and we will have a timetable for it. And that is how we Bahuli Karoti. That is how we repeat it. That is how we do it immeasurable number of times, right? What do you do? Where do you take this? Where you take the attention? Where do you take the origin, or how you drive your attention to the origin of what? He has given here. There are mental qualities that are skillful and unskillful. When you keep practicing, you will have skillful mental qualities and unskillful mental qualities. Say, for example, when you keep practicing, you are doing your observing your breath, and you have been observing your breath so well, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and after some time, gradually your mind drifts away and some angry thoughts comes, or some thoughts about lust comes, and then it develops, and in the next 5 minutes it is happening, and all of a sudden you realize your mind has drifted away, and then you become panicked. or this is not what I should have been doing. I should have been paying my attention to the breath. Or the same thing will happen even in walking, right? Or none of that will happen sometimes. You may be fantasizing, you may be daydreaming, and things may be going on in your head. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is not, I have wasted part of my sitting time or walking time. But what is Blessed One advice? These things are there. You will have skillful moments. You will have unskillful moments. You take your attention to them and try to take the attention to the beginning of those things. So this is why most of the teachers, what they say is, when these things are happening, as soon as you become aware of those things, don't try to rush and bring your attention to the breath or to the walking. Observe whatever you have in that particular point in time. And if you have been daydreaming, or if you have been having lust, or if you have been having some angry thoughts, just let it go on and you simply observe. Right? So if you don't fight with it, when it is there, when the unskillful state is there, then you will have the ability to see without looking for something. And that ability will let you see when it really starts, because now, because of your unwavering mindfulness, you are not trying to separate skillful states and unskillful states. Only thing you are doing is observation. You don't care whether cow is on the road or bus is on the road. You simply observe. So as a result, you will be more unbiased. When you become unbiased, you don't become part of the thing that is happening. Otherwise, you will try to identify yourself with unskillful thing. And as a result, even without your knowledge, you have identified yourself with unskillful as well. Right? So when you don't do that, you will get an opportunity. When you do it, especially over and over again, you will have an opportunity to see when it starts. Initially, you will not see that. It will take some time, but after some time, you will be able to do it. So it's same thing regarding blameworthy and blameless as well. That is also a range. On one side, you have the positive, and on the other side, negative. Don't worry. There will have mental qualities that if you tell someone, you feel, you yourself may hate when those things are happening. And when certain things are happening, you yourself will be happy and elated about it. Even of those things, what the Blessed One says is, don't have that differentiation. You just observe. As a result, you may be able to see the beginning when you don't identify. And similarly, gross and refined. So this is very very straightforward one. When you observe your breath, right, and you know when you have the gross breath, you can give all the details of the breath. But when it becomes finer and finer and finer, you lose words sometimes to explain it. Right? So what the Blessed One says is, no problem. Keep observing as much as possible. Get closer to what is happening. Try to see the very beginning. Yoniso manasika. Attention to the beginning. Right? And siding with darkness and siding with light. So it's again the same thing. Another range has been given. So the simple advice is, do it over and over again, irrespective of whether it's a positive or negative mental quality, and try to drive your attention the origin of the positivity and origin of the negativity. Right? So then you will see that anything will not last forever. It keeps on going and fades away, and the negativity will start. And even the negativity will not last forever. It keeps on going and fade away, and then positivity will start. So if you are able to do that, then you will be able to drive your mind into the physical process and into the mental process, and that you will be able to see things or observe things that you have not, or experience things that you have not experienced in your sense world. Right? For that, you need to have the first requirement is unwavering mindfulness, and then that leads to this yoniso manasikara bahulikaroti, which means taking your attention as close as possible, as intense as possible to the object, and as a result, that will become the food to examine, to analyze, and have a conclusion of what is going. By conclusion, I don't mean that there is something ending there. It says pavichaniti pavicheti parivimamsa apajyati. So if you see this, if you take this yoniso manasikara, or driving your attention to the origin, and if you discuss that in the light of our practice, in practice, for example, when we are walking, or even when we are sitting, or in any other thing, the Blessed One says, there are 11 facets involved. And you will be able to see these 11 facets if you try and drive your attention to the origin of the things. Right? So just let things happen, and you try to observe that as soon as it appears, when it is appearing. So this is why I say, when the breath is happening, let the breath happen and you just become an observer. Breath is a natural phenomenon. Your job is simply to observe. Right? So when you do that, there are 11 facets. The 11 facets are, first one is based on time, which is past, future, and present. And then the space, internal and external. It's another facet of anything. And then gross and subtle. That's when you get closer to it. And then common and sublime. So how a normal man will see, and how a person who is observing it very close will see. And near and far, right? So if you take these things, say for example, using walking, I'm not going to explain you how fast, past, future, and present straight away. I'll come to that later. It is easy to explain internal and external. When you are walking at the start, or for a beginner, we will say, keep your attention to the sole of the feet. And when you keep the attention to the sole of the feet and see what sensations you will feel when you step on the floor. And that person, depending on the nature of the floor, that person will say, okay, I'm walking on the tiles and I feel the coldness of my tile. Right? So when you feel the coldness of the tile, what happens is, he will say, he will feel the coldness of the sole of the feet, right? So what happens there is, it's the mixture of internal and external temperature. You feel the coldness because your sole of the feet has been warm. So because of that, when you place your leg, you feel the coldness. And then we ask him, okay, that's good. You feel that. And see what happens when you lift it. Then he can see that when he's lifting, that warmth comes back again. In other words, that coldness gradually reduces, fades away. Right? So therefore, in that way, he will be able to understand the internal and external. Just an example. So in the same thing, you can understand even breathing. The same thing is happening, right? So in anything, there is an internal and external factor, right? And when you keep on doing that, if you keep on having your attention to the walking process in this manner, you will observe 1 step, 2 steps, and 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps. And then you naturally become just an observer, and the walking is happening. So there will have a point when you observe 1 foot, you see you're placing 1 foot, and the other foot is also getting ready to come up. So which means now you see what is happening now and what has happened just before what is happening now. And you are also able to see what is about to happen on the other leg as well. So in that manner, if you become, if you get aside from what is happening, then you have an opportunity to see, observe past, future, and present as well. And when you see that, your mind is totally with the lower part of the body, and it keeps going, and you don't interfere with the natural process that is happening, then the initial gross observation gets subtler. So when it gets subtler, you don't know whether you're walking or not. You may feel that you're walking on a very smooth carpet. Or maybe some people say they feel that rather than walking, they feel that they are, just walking on the sky, so light. So that is because you are observing, you have moved from gross observation to the subtle observation, because you are not getting involved in what is happening. You allow what is naturally happening to happen, and you move away from it, and you just become an observer, right? And common and sublime is also something like that. A common man will see walking so gross, and sublime, he will see more and more details of it is not just walking. He will say there are a lot of things that are happening. The entire body weight is on 1 leg all the time, and it is not just one thing happening. Every time your the limbs, the posture of the limbs, position of the limbs are changing. So you will see so great detail of the walking process. And near and far is best explained using breath. When you observe the breath, it will come to a point that you are able to see the breath particles, air particles that are outside the nose, which are ready to come in. And you also see, on the other hand, the chest is also full of air. Right? So like that, you will be able to see the 11 facets. So, but in our practice, we don't see 11 facets. We see only the facets we want to see. We don't worry about the past. That is what we say anyway. We always try to keep the attention to the present moment. But if you really keep the attention, repeat the word attention, the present moment, you will naturally see past and future. And when it is internal, you will be very observant. But external, you don't care. When it is some people, when it is subtle, they don't like. They feel that they are losing something, that they are losing part of themselves. So they want always to have the gross breadth and gross walk. Right? And similarly, near and far. You don't want to, some people say when they are doing their breathing exercise, or I should not say exercise, breathing mindfulness, they feel that someone is breathing while sitting. And also there is another person outside breathing as well. Someone here, someone far away as well. And when that happens, some people get shocked. How is this happening? How am I going into two? So they need only the near one. But the Blessed One says, these are facets of anything. So you just don't bother. Your job is simply to observe. You can see that only if you allow your mindfulness to continue and try to observe as close as possible, which means get as close as possible to the origin of the phenomena that is taking place. And that's how the evolution of Yoniso Manasikara starts. And also when this happens, you may be able to see a bell-shaped process. Initially, when you observe breath, you will see the breath that is touching your nose when it is going in and when it's coming out. Or else, if you are paying your attention to the tummy, you will see only when your tummy rises or the chest rises and when it drops down, right? So that is how you will start. And when you keep on observing that place continuously, what happens is you see there is something happening even before that. What I have seen earlier is only when the breath has really grown, when it has come into my attention, or when it was gross enough to take my attention. But when you get closer and closer and closer, you see there are things happening even before that. Even before your tummy rises, the air is coming. And if you even get closer, as I said earlier, especially if your attention is at the entrance of the nostril, you will see there are air particles outside your nose, waiting to enter, when what is inside is out. To that extent, your attention can be sharpened. So in other words, what I want to say is, when you get closer to the object, you may see the beginning, the middle, and the end of it as well. And not only just the end. Once the exhalation is over, you will observe, you may observe that you will not breathe straight away. There will have a very tiny gap, very small gap in between. You take a rest. And then only that in-breath, you don't breathe, it starts. If you really observe, it starts on its own, depending on the requirement of your own body. But because you are not used to it, as soon as the out-breath is over, we try to breathe it, right? But if you really observe and get a sight of what is happening, your body will breathe. Body knows how much is required, right? So when you get closer, therefore, to the object, you may be able to also say, in addition to the 11 facets, beginning, middle, and the end as well. And then when you keep on doing that, finally, what you will see is there are things that are arising and passing away only. Because the breath that you are observing becomes subtler, because you don't waste any energy on anything else. Only thing that you are doing is observing your own life, which is breath. That does not require much energy. Energy means, once again, air. So it will come to a point where you are breathing and you won't be able to observe, but your attention is so heightened with your body. And when your attention is so much heightened with your body, you may be able to see that this entire body is alive. live. You can observe, you can see. It is generating, degenerating, and regenerating, degenerating and regenerating. You may observe that phenomena for a fraction of a second. And if you continue, you may be able to see it for some time as well. And that is called, in Buddha's terms, the rising and pass away phenomenon. That happens only when you bring your attention, or not bring, try to bring your attention as close as possible to the origin of the things that are happening. And I'm repeating, it is not necessary to do it purposely. But if you keep your mindfulness unwavering, that naturally happens. So you will have to just let that happen only. Then the rest will unfold. Right? So there have been, in our discussions, there have been many instances of such experiences. There was someone who, in one of the reports, she said, middle of the night when she was sleeping, she has brought her attention to the body, the sleeping posture. And then after some time, she has felt her entire body is filled with ants. And then she has come out of the bed and checked the entire mattress, the blanket, bed sheet, everything. Not a single ant was found, but she has not been able to sleep. Following morning call, and then that was a power cut in Sri Lanka. I'm not quite sure. Don't worry about, okay, it is back. Then I just explained her what's going on. And then following day, the same thing has happened. She has washed everything that night itself with hot water and said, no, it never stopped and it is increased. And definitely there are some ants somewhere. And then I washed it. And then I asked her, were you able to sleep after? She said, no. She said, no, I was feeling ants crawling on my body. I said, this is what is happening. Your attention, especially when you go to bed. And if you bring your attention to the body, the bedtime is the time where you are extremely relaxed and you give up everything and you just lie down and you are with yourself. Because when you meditate, when you walk and sit, you try to do something. But when you go to bed, you are not trying to do something, but you are simply relaxed. When you relax, if you bring your attention to the body properly, whatever you have practiced before, that may start giving fruits. So when that happens, that is when you really see these arising and passing phenomena. You just keep observing, And some people, after explanation, they will be happy and they will be willing to do it. But there are also people who are so scared about it and they won't be able to do it and they won't like doing it. And I had such a case as well. And she has spoiled the practice. Even when we called and asked what's going on, she just lied us as well. And we weren't able to help her. So in that manner, if you bring your attention closer to the beginning, to the origin of the phenomena, which we call yoniso manasikara, and if you keep on doing that over and over again, that allows you to examine, analyze, and come to a conclusion of what is happening. That is what we call Dhamma Vichaya, or investigation, as a factor for enlightenment. So I want to highlight again, you don't do it. It happens. Only thing you will have to do is, you will have to be prepared. You will have to be ready to see, okay, I will see one more breath bit earlier. I will see one more step bit earlier. That preparedness should be there. If that preparedness is, and sometimes even that is not necessary, when you keep on doing it over and over again, it naturally happens as well. But having said that, you should not sleep. Okay, it will happen and just do it for the sake of doing it. No. Give us some attention as well. And that provides the necessary energy, which we are going to discuss in the next meeting. So may you all have the courage to let investigation happen on its own accord. Teruvan Saranai, blessings of the Tripaja. All right. Any questions? Or are all questions? I don't know whether it made sense.
I think for me it's overwhelmingly the observation, like not to get caught up in the drama or what's happening, to be able to just stand back a little bit from it and observe what it is.
Yeah. Chatku, it would be better if you can get rid of the sound in the computer and use your phone. Then it will be clear. It was not.
Is that better? Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you can, I didn't hear you well, Trish.
I was just saying that for me, the biggest message that I was getting was to be able to, in being mindful, to observe what is happening, not to be caught up in the drama or in the situation that's happening, but to be able to just be a little bit back from that, be aware of it and observe what it is without having the emotions that would normally get caught up into that.
Yeah. And even there, the Blessed One saying, you will have skill and unskillful states. So even with that, don't get caught.
Mm-hmm.
Even there, you maintain your awareness only. Okay, this is happening. I'm just aware of it. And when you keep on observing, it happens again. Just become aware. And then you see it is becoming a habit now. And then you decide to see a bit more closer. See when it is happening, how it is arising. And to do that, you are doing something intentionally, but the intentional thing that you are doing is only to get closer of what is happening. And you improve your preparedness to see it. Not that you do anything in particular, but you improve your preparedness to observe. So the negativity will come, but you will be able to see it earlier. So therefore, having that negativity is necessary to go on the path, so that you know these negativities are there. And if you observe what happens to the negativity, and when you observe the negativity, you change your attitude towards the negativity. The negativity attitude that we have now is that we will shoot them, that we will bombard them, that we will destroy them. And that itself is destructive mentality. So the Blessed One says, no, it is what you call mind. It has both the sides. Let it come. You observe, if possible, at very early stage. For that, you simply need the preparedness only. So well, you are right. This is something that our mind is messing up with us all the time. Mind is always trying to get the positive side and forget about the negative side. And since we have got that message now, that we will have to not become part of it, but just become an observer, it's very good. But once again, your mind will overpower your understanding when you practice. And you may go with it. Doesn't matter. Now you know what is happening. So this knowledge will be therefore very important to see how tricky our minds are.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything about the practice?
I haven't. I only do like about 10 to 15 minutes of sitting meditation at home. So I found it difficult to stay with it tonight because I've had such a long break from this level. So it just showed that I need to do more, to get back.
Yeah. If you have at least 15 minutes walking, 15 minutes sitting on a daily basis, it will come into the timetable and it will become part of the life. And that will be very important.
Yes.
Yeah. What about Arthur? What happened to him?
He's on a different path. I don't think that he was
Very interested in.
I don't think he believes in
Right.
it as much as what he could. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's okay.
Yeah. Thank
Anything
you.
from you, Chatu?
Nothing from me, Bhante.
Right. Okay. Just give a ring to Sanjay as well and see what's going on with the clan. And I also would like to talk to him if he's able to talk to me.
He did contact me, but
Yeah.
he didn't say that he was coming. Actually, the other. What did he say? He's got the email. He got the email that the program was happening, but he didn't say anything about it. That's all.
Right. Okay. Just go ahead.
I told him to go. There was a program on this weekend with Rakita Bante.
Right.
Told him if he wants, he should go to that. I don't know if he'll go.
He'll run away when Bhante Rakita makes you sit 2 hours together. Right. Okay, just ask him to give me a ring if possible.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So are we good to conclude now then?
Yes.
All right. So thank you very much for the participation. We will, as usual, transfer the merit of this positivity with the rest of the living beings and conclude the session. You can chant the traditional stanzas.